Back to chess tournament recaps. Today is the first round recap of my spring round robin tournament. If you don't know what I am talking about, there will be a link in the description. And as always, with all of my tournaments, courses are on a big sale. It's going to be the first line in the description, 33% off until the end of the tournament on April 18th at 11:59 p.m. Now, I'm in an I am norm section, so I've got a lot of players who are a little bit underrated, maybe. And probably looking to gain some points by beating people like myself. And so the first round, I'm up with the white pieces against Hirsch Singh. Now, in this, in kind of the build-up to this game, I knew that my opponent had a very solid repertoire, very classical repertoire. He plays Queen's Gambit Declined, which is just unbelievably boring. He plays e4, e5, which is unbelievably boring. And the thing about, for example, I recommend the Vienna to a lot of intermediate, even advanced players. The problem with the Vienna is that if they know that it's coming, which is what I play almost all the time in my online games, they can find a line to equalize relatively simply. If you know it's coming and your rating is like 21, 2200, my opponent is 2073 FIDE, but 2200 USCF. There's no point trying to surprise somebody with the Vienna. So instead of that, I decided to surprise my opponent with something else. Rather than playing, and he played the knight f6 move order because I guess recently he's been playing knight f6, e6, which is slightly more professional than regular Queen's Gambit Decline due to some move orders. I decided to play the London, but the Jobava London. So I wanted to play knight c3 and bishop f4. The reason I went for this is because I saw that my opponent against the regular London always plays c5. And I figured that in a couple of games that I also saw with this move order, that they would play c5. So I was relatively confident that after 3 moves, this position would be on the board. And it was. It absolutely was on the board. Now here there's the main line by far is just to defend your center with the move e3, which also defends the b5 square with the bishop, so the knight can go there and then try to get into c7. But here after takes an a6, preventing anything from going to b5, position is completely equal. And I didn't feel like playing this. So instead, I took a risk. And what I had prepared before this game was e4. Now, what's interesting about this pawn structure is that it's actually the Albin counter gambit, but reversed. So imagine, just really quickly, I know this might be a little bit confusing, but d4, d5, c4, e5. One side has d and e, and one side has d and c, right? Like this, like a little Tetris piece, with pieces developed kind of adjacent to that. So look at this mirror image pawn structure, right? And normally what happens here is that if pawn takes pawn, white shoves the pawn forward. And the point is that white is a temporary pawn sacrifice, preventing black from getting kind of natural development. But I think black is completely fine here. I just didn't really want to go for this because I'm like, black's play here is very simple. G6, bishop g7, castles. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to go for this line. I'm going to go for the line where I take back on c5 right away. This has been played recently by some pretty decent players. One of whom is Hans Niemann, Grandmaster. He plays this quite a lot, and it's already a very trappy line. For example, here, I think according to Stockfish, the best move for black is the absolutely ludicrous bishop d7, which prevents you from putting the knight on b5, right? That's sort of the idea, but it's not because of takes. It's just because of knight a6, preventing knight c7. So bishop d7 is just one of these weird moves. I kind of figured my opponent would not come up with that over the board. And I prepared queen takes queen and queen a5. Queen a5 is very natural, pinning the knight to the king, trying to take c5. And so that's what I prepared. Because the thing is, in this position, white is just clearly better because of the better development, kind of a weak pawn here, and vague ideas of always creating a threat here. And this was our position. This was a position after 6 moves. I figured here he would play a6. I looked at that very briefly before the game. And I thought it was the most natural move, because if you just develop like this, I play knight b5 and black just resigns. I mean, you cannot stop either the fork or checkmate. It's mate right now if I get to c7. So he thought for a bit, played bishop d7. I'm like, okay, I'm on my own. I'm on my own now. So obviously, the idea of bishop d7 is that if I play knight b5, he could take it. Oops, sorry, he could take. That might have been his idea. But this just seemed a little bit ridiculous to just give me the bishop like absolutely nothing. I mean, the bishop pair here is very strong. I can even play knight e2 to try to apply more pressure here. And, you know, in like a perfect scenario, I basically get a position like this, where I just use my massive pawn advantage, which is going to be 4-2, and just crash through, use my bishops to control the enemy squares, and advance forward. That is kind of the game plan in a nutshell. But the reason I didn't like knight b5 here, I looked at it very briefly. I'm like, what am I doing after knight a6? I mean, honestly, like I'm not gonna go knight c7. What do I, I'm taking my eye off the center pawn, and I know that in many of these positions, there's a game plan to go knight e2, knight g3, and win the pawn. So, for example, if he just develops, I play knight here, get a position like this and simply pick the pawn up in the middle, and I'm up a pawn. So when he played bishop d7, I started to think, right? I started thinking, and then I thought of another interesting idea. I'm like, wait a minute. What if instead of going for this pawn with this kind of zigzag approach, I just target it immediately? Now he has a really unpleasant decision. If he takes my pawn, he helps me get my knight into the game. Then my knight will go to e5 and get his bishop, or e5 and my bishop on c4 together will get the f7 pawn. So this is only helping me, and I didn't really see what else he could possibly do except give me the pawn. I mean, my logic was like, okay, if he ever plays e5 or e6, I will always do this. Or I might even do this, right? I might just block his attack on my pawn. So I thought for a while. I had a lot of different ideas here, and I went for f3. As it turns out, Stockfish likes knight b5. Remember how I didn't play knight b5 because I thought, what is my next move here? I don't see my next move. Like, I don't have an immediate... Well, here's the thing. I don't need one. I just basically freeze him and don't let him move, and I just defend my pawn. So he can't take because knight c7, right? And then, like, let's say black plays e6, then I play a3. So it's a learning experience, right? Now I'm gonna build up that wall of pawns, and then I'm gonna continue with everything else. I thought taking my eye off the center and not having an immediate response to his defenses was not a good thing. It is, actually. Stockfish thinks this position is completely winning for white. So I got my prep on the board, but it was a little bit of an obscure position, especially one that I had like never really played before. I mean, I've never seen this d takes c5 line until 4 hours before the game. So I prepared it a little bit. One really funny comment that I saw, my chess friends, they like to send me the comments in the live game chat. You know, like when you watch football on TV or something, you yell at the athletes to do things that, we ourselves can't do. So I saw a comment that said, why is Levy trading queen so early? He should be playing for a win. I would just recommend not thinking of it that way. You know what I mean? You're going to really ruin your experience of watching live games. I didn't trade queens because I'm not playing for a win. I have an advantage of 3 pieces versus 1. Very active rook, very trappy position, and right, I was better. But I played f3. And now, credit to Hirsch, because he found an idea here that I just thought was great. He played knight c6. The reason I didn't give this move any thought was I'm like, he just loses his center pawn. Now, admittedly, I can't take like this, because the point of this is to play e5 with tempo and attack my pawn. And if I go here, the knight comes to g4, right? So now I have a problem. My bishop is hanging, and therefore my pawn will hang as well. So naturally, if fe4 runs into e5, knight g4, this knight is the problem, right? So logically, I should trade the knight and then get to this position. I'm like, okay, I'm just a pawn up. I mean, what do you want from me? I'm a pawn up, right? And now I'm going to go knight f3, etc. His only idea here, which I saw prior, was to move his knight into the middle. But then I just take it, and then I just take it, right? And then I just back up. This is what I thought prior. I thought, I'm just a pawn up. Like, what? I have 6, he has 5. I'm going to go here, here. I'll figure it out. But I made a mistake. My mistake was, when we got here, I went, oh, maybe I won't figure it out. He actually has a lot more, power in this plan than I thought. He sacrifices a pawn this way, so now he's down 2 pawns to get this pawn back, but he has the 2 bishops. And you know what else he has? A massive lead in development. My logic of this position was his bishop is targeted, and therefore it's going to be hard for him to move his king out of the middle. But so here I actually, I spent a lot of time, and again, in the live game chat, people were like, what is this idiot doing? Just take the pawn. I'm going to show you what I was calculating here. First of all, I thought about playing the move knight to f3. So the point is that I want to take the pawn with my knight instead of my rook. So bishop c5, knight d4. Now in this position, this trade is bad. He needs to keep the bishops, right? He can't just get into a rook and bishop endgame. So I thought if he castles, that just loses on the spot because two bishops hang with the move knight b3. Again, I'm calculating all this prior. Two bishops hang. If he checks me c3, two bishops hang, I win the game. So then I thought, well, he's going to castle long, right? And then I'm going to play knight b3, attacking his bishop. He's going to go here. But his plan here is very easy, right? Rook e8, bishop c6, maybe bishop g4, and I'm just too slow. This bishop is incredibly powerful. I can't castle. So then I had an idea after rook e8 to play the move king d2, which is an amazing move. King d2, look at this, escaping out. If he goes here, just rook e1, I defend my pawn, and I get my king to safety, and I'm just the pawn up. So I thought king d2 was brilliant. Again, I'm seeing this all the way back here. I'm playing these moves out for you, but this is what I'm calculating, okay? I'm not just, stuck in the toilet stall somewhere. So I calculated all of this, right? This. And then the reason I rejected king d2 was bishop c6, which has two threats. The pin on my king to take this pawn, and just taking the pawn. So even if I am successful in getting my king to safety, not only is there bishop takes e4, there's also things like f5. And I'm in big trouble. f5 takes bishop here. My rook is going to get stuck. There's all sorts of ways to bully my pieces. So I decided not to play knight f3, but I was also calculating the move b4 to defend my pawn before taking back. And here I was calculating wild stuff. First of all, I was calculating b6. I decided that after b6, I could play something like c6, bishop c6, rook d4, and then something like knight f3, bishop c4, and I would be completely fine. Then I calculated a5, after which I would play either rook d4, ab, rook b4, and take this, or the variation a3, ab, rook a4 hitting this, rook d4 defending it, bishop c5. If I take, there's this, but there is this incredible move. The point is that after king takes rook, there's a fork, so he can either take me or check me. If he checks me, I come back and I'm winning, but he can go bishop b4. Now I have to make sure my king doesn't walk into any threats, so I'll play king to f2 here, and I thought, oh, I'm just winning here, because if he takes my rook, bishop b5 is a win. Except it's not. Bishop b5 is not a win because there's rook a8 and then there's rook a1. So it's like a 10-move combination that results in a total draw. But that's the stuff that I was calculating, and I decided, you know what? Okay, to hell with this. I'm just gonna play all the way back here. I'm just gonna take his pawn on d4. And again, this is sort of what happens. You spend a lot of time and you do something stupid. So I play bishop c4 here. My idea of bishop c4 is to put the bishop on d5. So that was the original idea. I thought, maybe he'll play f6 to get out of danger. I'll go here, then I will go here. And if you give me a couple of moves here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably play something like king d1 and rook e1. So I just wanted to consolidate my position like this. But he played rook e8, and this move stunned me because I realized that I had made a mistake. My original intention to meet this move was to go bishop d5. And if he plays bishop c6 targeting my bishop, or bishop e6 targeting my bishop, I was going to move my king out of the pin. This was my idea. I was going to play king d1. So now I'm defending this, right? And I'm going to play knight f3, and I thought I was just fine. But when I got here, I realized that if I play bishop here, he just has f5. And he's just going to attack me with this, and I'm much worse. So I'm kind of sitting there like, uh-oh, that's not good. Now, again, I thought I could go rook e2. I really didn't like the fact that in this position he could maybe play bishop c6, and I didn't really know who was going to defend this pawn. Well, computer already wants to bail out. It wants to just, trade pieces and make a draw, basically. This is not really something that was on my mind. If it was, maybe I would have considered this, but I thought, oh, man, no, I can't do that. So here, instead of that, I calculated bishop takes pawn. So I thought, okay, bishop takes f7, right? He's going to take with check, and I'm going to play knight e2. And this was my original idea. So when I first went into this, I was like bishop f7, rook e4, and I ended up playing rook e2, but this was my original idea. I calculated so many lines here. I mean, bishop e3, rook f8, bishop c6, bishop f5. And then it just dawned on me that this move loses on the spot. So it went from bad to worse. It went from missing a slight thing to the fact that black here can just go here, and I'm completely screwed. I'm completely dead. I can't defend myself. My bishop is not making it back in time to defend my knight. So if like he's gonna take my rook and then he's gonna take my knight, and if I take him, I can't guard my knight. So imagine the feeling of thinking about something for like 7-8 minutes, and just then you're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? There's just bishop g4. Like, I'm just a complete idiot. Another idea I had here actually originally was to go king d1. And I thought this was kind of clever until I realized that it just loses to rook f8, rook f1. So I have to go rook e2. And I'm sitting at the board like, I think he's probably winning here, but I don't see how. So I was calculating rook e2. I was calculating, bishop b5 attacking this. That just obviously hangs a rook. Bishop c6. Sorry, I meant rook takes and bishop b5. Then I was calculating things like rook d4. And the idea of rook d4 is to move the bishop and then try to get in here. I was calculating many lines. One of the lines I was calculating was the move rook f4, which I thought looked very logical because, again, I saw the idea to double the rooks, right? To double the rooks either on the d or the f file. I thought this did nothing, though, because I could just trade his bishop. And in my mind, I was like, okay, if we trade bishops, and I'm just going to go knight f3 next move, right? I'm fine. There's nothing to worry about. What I had completely forgotten about here, and so did he, was that now after going this way, he bounces his rook back, and I'm dead. I don't have time to develop my knight, and I lose. I mean, I can survive here with like very desperate defense, but I mean, this is a terrible position, and black will just bring in the rook and take everything. So I actually was losing after the move rook f4. I kind of had a feeling I might have been losing, but I didn't see it. I didn't see this whole idea. I didn't see rook f4, rook d4. It's kind of an absurd little thing, hitting, and he thought for like 20 minutes here. So he was calculating many lines. I didn't see it at all. I mean, I was staring at the board like, there's probably something here, but I don't see it. I'm looking at all these different aggressive moves. He played a stylish move, though, to his credit. He played the move bishop g4, which admittedly is actually a bad move, but it's a very cool move. The point is, if I take his rook, it's mate. I didn't even see bishop g4. So actually, when he played it, I'm like, am I losing? Probably not, because he spent 20 minutes on it. I would be losing if he spent like 30 seconds on it. So he plays here. I just block. He takes, and then he plays rook d4. And again, I only have one move here. He's threatening this. So I can play king f1. And, I'm going to go here, here, and defend myself. And in this position, what I had calculated was he can play the unbelievably annoying move rook d2. Point is that, he's trying to get to my pawns. If I take, he's just going to gobble, 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 right? But in my mind, I had prepared a really wild defense here. One of the weirdest geometrical defenses I've ever seen in my life. If he had played this, I was going to go rook e1. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, right? I mean, what an unbelievable defensive formation. The point is, if he takes this rook, I'm going to take this rook. I need my rook on the second rank, right? And if he plays something like bishop to e3, I can just play king f1. And I'm just defending all my pawns. But the thing is, you don't want to get into an opposite-colored bishop endgame. So now that we're also nearing this kind of end phase, endgame, right, phase of the game, in my mind, I'm like, how am I going to win this? I won't win this if it's just bishops of opposite color with the current pawns. So 4-5 with bishops of opposite color is never a win. The dark-squared bishop will defend the light-squared bishop to the end of time. I need a rook. I need at least one rook on the board. And, he harassed me for a while. He even did something very clever here where he locked my king away on the h-file. Visually, it looks really striking, but the problem was he burned all his time in like this position and the following position. So now, even though we were equal on time as we got to this endgame, he didn't have a lot of time. He had maybe 10 minutes, and I had like 35, 40. And I made a very conscious decision here to play fast and just try to pose him problems. In my mind, I was thinking where the best configuration of his pieces was, and I think the bishop on d6 here is the best move. Stockfish agrees. Point is that he just pressures this, doesn't let me move, and his king gets off the back rank. You understand? Like, if his king gets even a little bit of activity in this endgame, that's really all he needs. Not to mention the fact that he can just create a dark squared fortress, so everything is protected. I can't really break out, and my king is just garbage. And again, I don't want to go here. This is just an auto draw. So in the game, he thought he didn't play bishop d6. He played bishop d4, and I kind of figured this was my moment. And I really got to shake off the the bad stuff about this game. He let me. My gut instinct was just to attack him. The reason I didn't want to do this is because now my pawns can't really move. I can't really move one or the other. They're both going to be weak. So I decided this was my moment. Rook e7 was my moment also for seasonal allergies. So I played rook e7. Again, cutting the king off on the back rank. Rook activity is so important. King activity, very important as well in endgames like this. And for the cost of one pawn, my threat was to get in. He can either go here and give me b7, or he can go to b8 and just, basically give me b7 in the long run anyway. And I figured that this was going to be a very annoying move for him. So he went back. He actually wanted to kick me out. And then I gave him a check, and he played king b8. Now, here's the issue. If I chase him out, I don't think I'm really doing myself any favors. I'm just activating his king, and mine is really bad. So what I decided to do here was to move my rook to f7, and I'm still creating the threat of bishop d5 and rook taking. Kind of annoying to defend here for black, because again, bishop d5 is a threat. Now, if he plays something like rook d1, preventing bishop d5, then what I'm going to do is play b3, then I'm going to play c4, and then I'm going to put my bishop on d5 anyway. So again, my pawns will support my bishop, not his bishop. And my rook is on the most active square, so even though my king's kind of passive, he's doing fine. He's all right. He's in witness protection over there on h3. He plays rook e1, and I realized prior that his idea was to trade rooks with me. And that's a very annoying idea. I can't trade rooks. Trading rooks here is an auto draw. But I realized that after rook e1, I actually can delay the move bishop d5. Very nice idea here, targeting his weakness. Endgames are all about weaknesses. It might be threatening them and winning them, or using them as a decoy to win time. And bishop f5 is a very clever move, because if he plays the move h6, I now get to target the weak pawn on b7, and I block him using my f-pawn. In endgames, every little pawn matters, okay? So the f-pawn here will prevent the rook from getting back and interfering with mine, right? So it's all about coordinating your pieces together in the maximum way. So what does he do here? He bails out. And I'm sitting there like, he's basically saying this endgame is a draw. He is claiming this 5-on-3 endgame, not 5-on-4, is still a draw because of opposite colored bishops. My alternative is to abandon my plan completely. And I thought here, and I'm like, man, he's got like 4 minutes to defend this endgame. Is he really going to do it? Now, the way you win an opposite colored bishop endgame like this is you try to trade one of these pawns to create a pass pawn. So right now I don't really have a pass pawn, right? And then you try to create a pass pawn over here. Now, the further apart the pawns are... Oh, am I sneezing? Because... muted my microphone. I'm sorry. Allergies are killing me. So is this game. So the further apart your pawns are, the better. So for example, if you can create an A and like an H pawn, or like a B and H pawn in opposite colored bishop endgame, it's a lot better because you understand your opponent has to constantly fight off both pawns. Your king will try to run to one of them. The way black tries to defend this position is by creating a fortress. So regardless of the current position, black basically says, no, you can't get through. So he plays bishop f6, which is not a bad move. I also like bishop d6. This prevents me from just walking forward. Again, if he just lets me walk up to f5, I'm going to get a much better version of this endgame. My king is very active. I will go harass him here. I will try to trade off the pawn. I feel like Stockfish would probably defend this endgame with black. So he kind of does that, right? And my original intention here was I actually thought he was going to go g5. He can't, though, because I'm just going to go back, which is kind of hilarious. So now, you cannot take my pawn because your pawn is so weak. So he plays king c7, and now I move my h-pawn out of danger. He plays b5. This is a very important moment. If I just try to continue advancing here, I now kill off my ability to make a pass pawn. Right? I talked about this. You need to make a pass pawn in the endgame. Here, I have no ability to create a pass pawn because of en passant, and I'm just going to lose not the game. Sorry, I meant to say I just stopped that sentence short. I'm going to lose my ability to create a passer on the queen side. So I have to play c4. And now I have this. So I have one pass pawn. Okay, that is the one pass pawn I was always going to make on the queen side. He plays king d6, and now I'm like king h3. And again, the intention is to play king g4, king f5, and one of these pawns will be traded. Even, you know, one other way to win this endgame, I was thinking about this for a while. Even if I don't successfully trade, there is an argument to be made here, like I'm just gonna, obviously, this is not what happened in the game, there's an argument to be made that even this is winning for white. There could be an argument that sacrificing the pawn for nothing is an option to just escort my pawn, because my bishop will always cover promotion, right? So this is one of the ways I thought about winning this game, was just to even sack the pawn completely. The problem is that in a position like this, it's a fortress. You see what I'm saying? It's a fortress. This is too close, maybe. And I wasn't completely sure this was winning. This is a little bit too close. The king and the bishop for black are a little bit too close to each other for me to comfortably break through. So I figured I would need to, you know, outmaneuver him here, especially given his low time situation. And what did I do? You know, I made the threat of running my king in this direction. I could have also maybe played c5, c6 with the idea to just get the pawn as far as possible. But, you know, again, I just decided to do it this way. And here he got a little bit desperate. He had a minute on the clock, and he decided to solve his problems aggressively. The problem is that, again, it's not the f-pawn that he wants. He wants the h-pawn. He wants the pawns closer together. He should have just kept his king there and moved back and forth. And his idea should have been to trade h for g. But he rushed it, took my f-pawn, and gave up the g-pawn. So now it's c and h, and this is a winning endgame because now they're too far apart. So what do? I advance my pawn, and I defend my pawn. I advance my pawn. I advance my pawn. I defend my pawn, right? He can't take because this. And now, while I have this opportunity, I'm going to walk my king forward. Don't hang your bishop. Now that he's threatening, he's covering the promotion. So walk my king up all the way to g8 and give my pawn a helping hand with h7, h8. And his king is just stuck. It's unable to help with both. So we get a win in round one. Wasn't easy at all. Yeah, I mean, credit to my opponent for finding the best moves over the board, you know, like bishop d7 was not, I should have played knight b5, but I thought I was really onto something, and knight c6 was just, yeah, very nice move to just sack the pawn and get some really interesting compensation. So you live and you learn. You live and you learn. I tested out a new line. I had a decent position for one move. He had a completely winning position for one move, and that's how it goes sometimes. But we got to do better if I want to have a good tournament and not a disastrous one. All right, folks. Appreciate you hanging out with me. All the games are being streamed on Twitch, by the way. My wonderful wifey, Lucy, she's taking care of getting the game up from chess.com events. So if you want to make a Twitch account, come hang out during the games. You're more than welcome to do so. There's a courses sale. Check the link in the description. I'll see you for round number 2. Get out of here.